Hi, my name is Emily, and ever since I can remember, my dad has been climbing mountains. Not just any mountains, some of the tallest, most dangerous peaks in the world. While other kids played soccer or rode their bikes, I was in the backyard conquering my own Everest, which, in reality, was just a pile of rocks and an old tree stump. But to me, it was the greatest adventure ever. I would watch my dad pack his gear: helmets, ropes, carabiners, his eyes always filled with excitement and focus. Every time he left for a climb, I would beg him to take me. "Not yet, Em," he'd say, ruffling my hair. "You've got to train first, one day." So I trained, in my own way. I climbed everything I could: trees, fences, even the roof of our house once, though that earned me a serious grounding. I made many expeditions in the forest near our home, pretending I was scaling icy cliffs or dodging avalanches. My dad saw my passion and started teaching me real climbing techniques. I learned how to tie knots, how to use my legs more than my arms, and most importantly, how to respect the mountain. As I got older, my climbs got bigger. First, a small cliff near our town, then a real mountain, not Everest, of course, but one that made my legs burn and my lungs beg for air. And then finally, the day came. The day my dad asked me, you ready to do this for real?" I could barely breathe. He was inviting me on a real climb, a serious one, not a backyard adventure, not a small hill, but a real, towering peak. A dream come true. The journey began long before we even reached the mountain. We trained together every morning, waking up before sunrise, running, lifting weights, practicing our techniques. My dad didn't go easy on me. "You want to do this? You earn it," he'd say. And I did. Then, finally, the day arrived. We stood at the base of the mountain, the wind howling around us, the peak disappearing into the clouds. I was nervous, no, terrified. What if I wasn't ready? What if I failed? But my dad just looked at me and said, "One step at a time, Em. Let's climb." We started the ascent. The first few hours were smooth, challenging, but manageable. The rhythm of climbing was almost meditative. My dad would lead, setting the pace, and I followed, matching his movements. The air was crisp, the sky a bright, endless blue. Every step took us higher, closer to the summit. Then things got harder. The incline steepened and the wind picked up. My fingers, despite my gloves, felt numb against the freezing rock. My breathing became shallow. At one point, my foot slipped, and my heart nearly jumped out of my chest. But my dad was there, steady as always. "Breathe, Em. Trust your footing. You've got this." We reached a ledge where we could rest for a moment. I looked down and felt a mix of awe and fear. We were so high up. The valley stretched out beneath us, small towns looking like dots on a vast canvas. "Don't focus on the drop," my dad said. "Look ahead." So I did. And ahead was more climbing, more challenge. My legs burned, my arms ached, but I refused to stop. We pressed on, inching closer to the summit. Then came the toughest part, a nearly vertical rock face. My dad climbed first, securing the ropes. "Take it slow, Em. Use your legs, not just your arms." I nodded, even though my pulse was racing. I reached for a handhold, then another. My muscles screamed, but I kept going. Halfway up, doubt crept in. My strength was fading. I wanted to say I couldn't do it, but then I heard my dad's voice above me. "You've trained for this. Trust yourself." I gritted my teeth and pushed through, one hold at a time, one pull at a time. And then, after what felt like an eternity, I made it. I pulled myself over the edge, collapsing onto solid ground, breathless, exhausted, but exhilarated. My dad grinned, patting my shoulder. "Told you you could do it." The final stretch was a steady climb. The sun was beginning to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, and then, finally, we reached the top. I stood at the summit, looking out at the world below. The wind roared around us, but I felt calm. I had done it. I had climbed a real mountain, a dream I had chased since I was a little girl in the backyard, pretending to scale the impossible. My dad looked at me, pride in his eyes. "So, what's next?" he asked with a smirk. I smiled, gazing at the horizon. "Something even bigger." The descent was just as challenging. My legs felt like lead, and exhaustion weighed heavy on my body. But with each step down, a sense of accomplishment settled in. As we reached the base, my dad clapped a hand on my back. You did it, Em. You really did it. That night, sitting by the campfire, the stars twinkling above us, I realized something. Climbing wasn't just about reaching the summit. It was about the journey, the struggles, and the lessons along the way. My dad had always known that. And now, so did I. Over the next few weeks, I couldn't shake the feeling that I wanted more. The adrenaline, the challenge, the sense of accomplishment, it was intoxicating. I started researching mountains, reading books about famous climbers, watching documentaries about impossible ascents. My dad noticed. Already planning your next climb? He asked one evening. I nodded. Yeah, I think I'm ready for something bigger. He grinned. Good, because I have something in mind, but it's going to test you in ways you haven't imagined yet. And he wasn't kidding. Our next climb would be longer, higher, and far more dangerous. The conditions would be harsher, and the risks would be real. But I was ready, because I had learned that climbing wasn't just about mountains, it was about perseverance, about trust, about never backing down from something just because it scared you. The morning we left for our next climb, I felt the same nervous excitement bubbling inside me. But this time, it was different. This time, I knew I belonged on that mountain. And as we took our first steps toward the towering peak, my dad glanced at me and said, Remember, Em, one step at a time. And I did.